Știu. Știu.
Știu.
Știu.
Știu. Știu.
Bună ziua și bine ați venit la o nouă ediție a ZF Live. Eu sunt Roxana Petrescu, senior editor al ziarului financiar și voi fi gazda dumneavoastră de astăzi. Așa cum sunteți obișnuiți, ZF Live va include 2 interviuri. În prima parte a emisiunii o am alături de mine în studio pe Victoria ZINCHUK, directorul pentru România al BERD, unul dintre cei mai puternici finanțatori pe care România are. Welcome, Victoria! Și în partea a doua a emisiunii îl vom avea alături de noi pe Adrian Borotea, unul dintre cei mai cunoscuți specialiști din domeniul energetic, country manager în cadrul Verbund România, alături de care vom discuta zona de energie verde și așteptări pentru 2025. O să trec foarte scurt în revistă ce are ziarul financiar astăzi pe prima pagină. Astăzi o zi care cred că pentru foarte mulți dintre noi vine ca un șoc. Iată, ca main avem o retrospectivă a Galei ZF, evenimentul prin care ziarul financiar a sărbătorit cei 26 de ani alături de un invitat cu totul special, Gerard Baker, Wall Street Journal. Aș citi doar titlul din interviul de deschidere a ziarului. Alianța între Europa și SUA a fost cea mai de succes forță pentru libertate și prosperitate din istoria planetei. Să rămânem cu acest mesaj. Celelalte materiale sunt din zona de energie, prosumatori. Avem 2000 de megawatts instalați în mici producători, consumatori de energie, dar vedem că pe timp de iarnă acest salt al României nu prea ne ajută cu nimic în ceea ce privește importurile de energie. O tranzacție interesantă, Infinity Capital, care a vândut 16% din antibiotice, 290 de milioane de lei. Liviu Popescu explică mai multe despre această tranzacție și aș menționa și recordul atins de Ford la Craiova, 200.000 de mașini asamblate în octombrie, o lună record. O să trec către invitata pe care o avem alături de noi și o să avem această conversație în engleză. Welcome again, Victoria.
Thank you.
This is your first year as a director for Romania at EBRD. Could you share with us something about this year? How was this for you, and some things about your previous experience?
Well, this is already my second year. I've joined EBRD in Romania in September last year, and this was a very exciting journey for me because, as some of you may know, I have lived in Romania 20 years ago, briefly, back in 2003 and then 2004-2005. And for me it was very interesting, professionally and personally speaking, to see how Romania has evolved in its last 20 years. Before coming to Romania, I was based in Croatia, in Zagreb, for 5 years, where I was managing EBRD's operations in Croatia. And prior to coming to Romania, I was also in charge as a regional director of Slovenia, Slovakia, Czech Republic and Hungary. Before that, I was in charge briefly of our operations in Morocco, based in Casablanca, with many years spent in London prior to this.
Quite an experience, also regional and very international. EBRD is a very strong ally of Romania. Since 1991, the investments that you delivered here are over 10 billion euros, so that's a huge amount. I would like to talk about the last 5 years. If you can tell us which were the most important things that happened during this time.
Thank you. And yes, looking at the history, EBRD became a quite prominent player in Romania in 1991. And if we go back into history, this was a very critical period for Romania. And if you think about what EBRD stands for, it's European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And so our very first project in Romania back in '91 was investment in Romtelecom, looking at how we can reconstruct the telecom network. We have financed roads, we have financed banks. Some of those banks were since acquired by the international players. And we have indeed invested now 11 billion. So as every year goes, we actually add nearly a billion to the overall volume of what we do. And now the last 5 years, moving from reconstruction to development, I would say. So clearly Romania at this point in time needs a strong partner that will help its development going forward. And this is what we have done. And if we look in the last 5 years, there has been a dramatic shift in terms of how much business we have been able to do in Romania while contributing to the development of private and public sector. So if we look back in 2020, we were investing slightly above 300 million euros per year in the Romanian economy. In the last 2 years, this number went to 600 to 700 million. And this year, 2024, we're hoping that this will be a record year of EBRD's operations in Romania, well in excess of 700 million euros. So the way we invest has not changed. We have always been looking at the projects that are bankable, at the projects that make a difference, that generate an impact. But what has shifted really is the distribution of our portfolio, as well as the sectors that we are investing into. So I would say in the last few years, private sector became really the driver of our portfolio growth. So every year we invest between 80 to 90% of the overall envelope of the financing into private sector. And this is something that many of our counterparts don't realize, because many people think EBRD is an infrastructure bank. Well, we're actually not. If you will look at the historical portfolio, infrastructure, including energy, does account for 30% of everything that we have done up until now and what is still in the portfolio. But in terms of the new business in the last years, clearly private sector, which accounts, depending year on year, we have slightly different data, but between 80 to 90% is invested in real economy with the private sector clients.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that 2024 will be a record year concerning your investments here. Can you tell us what triggered this growth of your investments this year?
Well, it's a combination of different factors. First of all, there is one sector that is emerging as really the most prominent sector, where EBRD, I believe at this point in time, is the most active financier. And probably this will stay in the next year or two very much so, which is the energy sector. And in order for the energy sector to be as active as it is, it's a combination, on one hand, of the work that the government, so in this particular context, Ministry of Energy has done, as well as the work of players such as EBRD, whereby we have supported the government in order to make sure that their investment climate is very much attractive for the private sector investors. So up until now, in 2024, we have invested very significant amounts of money that we have not done in the past in the energy sector, particularly renewable energy sector. And we are expecting their CFDs auctions that only last week the auction was closed, and then the results are expected in mid-December, that this will provide another boost in terms of the projects that will come to the market that will require financing by different organizations, including EBRD. And of course, we have contributed massively in terms of the advisory support to the Ministry of Energy in order to structure the CFDs. Our teams from London, as well as from Romania, have worked very extensively with the consultants that have been working with the ministry, and I'm very happy that Romania indeed has made all of the relevant legislative changes that were necessary, and that the first auction is happening as we speak, because we are expecting 1.5 gigawatt of their new renewable energy capacity to come to the market. But then looking back on 2024, EBRD has already financed 6 projects before the CFD scheme, so these are not part of the CFD schemes, where indeed we're also talking about 1 gigawatt of the capacity, and this attracted 1 billion of private sector co-financing. So we're talking about really serious funding here, and the fact that we can leverage with our support this type of investments. We invested 180 million, but private sector contributed 1 billion. So I think this is really something that is worthwhile paying attention to, because for us these are very impressive results.
How must a project be built so that it gains your support? I mean, what kind of projects do you feel the opportunity to support?
Well, the criteria for EBRD's financing are actually very transparently displayed on EBRD's website, and they have not changed. You know, I've worked in the bank now for 22 years, and those criteria haven't changed. We look at the projects that are bankable. So as an institution that is providing financing on the debt side, these projects need to be bankable. On the equity side, of course, we need to make sure that there is an equity story, because we are a financial investor there. And then in addition to it being bankable, we're looking for the impact. We're really looking at what EBRD's financing will contribute to in terms of the market development, in terms of improving standards that either the underlying company will achieve or the sector in which it will operate. So we're definitely financing the projects that make a difference. And, you know, kind of going back to the history of EBRD, it's important to mention that every single person who works at EBRD, including myself, we joined this bank because of their fundamental ethos that we have. EBRD's sort of mission and logo is we invest in changing lives. So every project that we finance needs to prove that with this project we can change lives.
Again, looking back, which would you say were the main challenges over the last 5 years? I mean, were there things that could have been done better in order to accelerate investments?
You know, everything can always be done better in life. And then let's look back in the last 5 years and let's be realistic. What happened in the last 5 years? We had their sequence. We had the sequence of the black swan events that are by default not supposed to happen, right? More than once in a lifetime. And then in the last 4 years, even not 5 years, we have had COVID, we have had the war, we have had their energy crisis. So anything that you can imagine has happened in the environment where we operate. And we cannot take Romania just as a country that is not reliant, of course, on everything else that is happening internationally, globally, and regionally. So I would say that the challenging times, we have had enough around us. But it's interesting, we need to remember that institutions such as EBRD, so we're a development bank, and by default, development banks thrive at the times of uncertainty, at the times when situation around us is not stable in any way. And the clients that come to EBRD, provided that they are bankable, provided these are the clients, of course, we can work with, what they're looking for a stable partner that can withstand the pressure of any external shocks alongside these clients. And they know that we will be there with them regardless of how hard times may be. And we will be there with them as well when the success will follow and when, hopefully jointly, we will cross those turbulent times.
So energy is and will remain a pillar in your investment strategy concerning Romania. But besides energy, your involvement in our local economy is greater than that. Coming to the public sector, can you give us maybe some examples of your involvement here, big projects that you finance?
So in the public sector, of course, we still finance a number of companies such as Electrica, which is on the energy sector, but as you said, we're not going to talk about energy now. So it's worthwhile mentioning EBRD's Green Cities program. At this point in time, we have 6 cities that became green cities and that have received relevant advisory support from EBRD in order to define which KPIs need to be reached in order for their residents of those cities also to feel that they are truly live in the green cities. So in terms of the names, so we're talking about Timișoara, Iași, Alba Iulia, and Bucharest, Craiova. So these are the type of cities that have embraced the program of EBRD, and we have very recently financed quite a large number of projects with these cities. So if you're living in Timișoara and if you are taking a tram, then it's quite possible that one of those trams was financed by EBRD. The reconstruction of the tram lines, the electric buses, again, EBRD's investments. If you live in Craiova and you look at the refurbishment of the public sector buildings that the city has done so beautifully in the last few years, this is what EBRD has financed. If you go to Iași, again, we have financed the water sector, we have financed the depot very recently for their buses, etc. So the work that EBRD is doing in the public sector with municipalities is very precise and very project-specific. So we see that there is a need, and EBRD has invested a lot in their improvement of the water and wastewater sector in Romania. And we then support the municipalities with advisory in order for them, on one hand, to leverage and attract EU funds, but also get co-financing through EBRD's funds. So at this point in time, as we speak, we have invested around 1 billion euros in the municipal sector in Romania, which has leveraged another 6 billion of EU funds. But it's not just leveraging the funds. Those projects may not have happened without the teams of EBRD's bankers and consultants working hand in hand with the individual municipalities to make those projects possible.
You didn't say anything about Bucharest as a green city.
Bucharest has just joined our Green City program.
Oh,
so we are going through their what we call Green Cities Action Plan, whereby the city of Bucharest is defining what needs to be done. And then hopefully, eventually, we will also finance some of these investments. But you and I, we live in Bucharest. We know that there is a lot that can be done. And if you want my opinion on this, I would love us to be one of their largest financial partners of the city of Bucharest, because we are prepared to put significant funds into their improvements that are required in order for Bucharest to be a greener city.
So our local authorities are working on an action plan,
yes.
And they must submit it to you.
It's not about must. This is a voluntary. So it's not about must, it's about do they want. And the great news is that they definitely want, and they're working on it. And I think, I have lived here now for a bit more than a year, and I already see in terms of their situation on the roads, how the situation has changed. Some people can say that it has changed not necessarily for the better because of the reconstruction. And of course, if you are using a tram line that has now been reconstructed, there is a period of inconvenience. But at the same time, when I see how the improvements are happening, and we are not financing this particular tram line, tram number 5. But I have been observing the progress, and I think
it's amazing.
And
I live there.
You see,
it's amazing.
You see. So this is about the commitment, the real commitment and real desire to improve and make change and contribute to those changing lives agenda that we also have. So we are very much aligned with their strategy of Bucharest in this sense. And as I said, we stand by to support future projects of the city as and when they will be coming.
How do you feel your interaction with our local authorities, with our administrations has changed over the years? Because for us, this is a major point of concern, the fact that there is a lot of opportunity out there, including, of course, the European funding, and we are not getting 100% of it. And this is because of our administration capacity. How do you see the dialogue?
Well, listen, everything needs to be looked into comparison. So having lived 5 years in Croatia, and Croatia has been seen as a darling of the EU, and I love Croatia. Croatia became home. At the same time, I must admit very honestly that I'm actually very impressed with a number of local administrations here in Romania. Very, very impressed by their drive, the desire to make the change happen. It's probably not consistent throughout the whole country. And I'm not just talking about the cities with which we work. For example, I was in Oradea a couple of weeks ago, and we're not yet working with the city of Oradea, but seeing what that city has achieved in such a short period of time, we know all of us what the city of Cluj has achieved. But then when I arrived here, and I went first time to the city of Cluj, and people were telling me, Victoria, but things were not always like this here, you know. So maybe sometimes we want the change to be so fast and so imminent that we forget to look at really impactful changes that have happened in Romania. And I'm not at all denying that a lot more needs to be done, and many more communities need to look at those ones that have totally changed their situation in their cities. But I think you have many, many aspiring cities, smaller and larger. And I think this is something that definitely needs to be considered. And, you know, when you say that there is a perception that maybe things are not being done as well, I went to Iași a few months ago, and I've seen how collaboration between the city and the private sector, enabling the urban regeneration, that really drew so much more businesses, so much more investment in the city. These are examples that work, and I think we need to celebrate those examples. And then where things are not yet working as they should, well, institutions such as us, we're looking for opportunities, and we bring those opportunities. I know that I probably give you a very long answer, but maybe to conclude, I really want to make a point now about Geo Valley, for example. And you would not imagine that EBRD would be financing at this point in time Geo Valley as a whole, because this is not what we usually do. We provide financing to municipalities for certain infrastructure improvements. But we have just launched a new program in order to support the communities in Geo Valley, whereby private sector, public sector, NGOs have joined forces together in order to look for the future of the Geo Valley and what this could be. Could this be the center of robotics? Could be the center of anything else in terms of innovation that could be brought to this region? And we are providing support to these initiatives, and we have just had the first round of the discussions with their consultant that came all the way from Silicon Valley and who was providing support to Cluj on one hand through some program that we have developed there. And now Geo Valley has access to the same know-how and the same level of knowledge. So I think we need to really look at the granularity of whether we can say that public sector and local authorities are not supporting or not doing enough, or we can say, okay, who is doing exceptionally well, who else needs support, who else needs help, who could be the players, and it doesn't have to be just EBRD. There are many other institutions, international but also local development agencies that can do more. But I think we do need to celebrate successes as well.
How much time do you think it's needed for a project like the reconversion of Geo Valley to have, I don't know, some sort of structure? Because for me, this is one of the most complex processes that Romania must deliver for that region.
You know, complexity lies in the man's minds. So
we have seen that.
How much time is needed? Listen, very often I give an example of something that is not known outside of Croatia, for example. And even in Croatia, sometimes people don't realize the scale of change within one very small municipality, which is like less than a couple of hours drive from Zagreb, whereby it was a situation where young people were leaving for years. So from the moment Croatia became an EU country, the local authorities, when I asked them, why did you bring those changes? They said, Victoria, our young people were living in buses. They were taking buses in order to go to Germany, to go to Austria, to look for a better future for them and for their families. So this small, very small town was depopulating very, very fast. it was interesting because the local authorities decided to make a very bold move. They've decided, okay, we want to be the center of video gaming community, not just in Croatia, but in the neighboring countries. And so what they did, they took an opportunity while attracting EU funds to not just convert a building like many other local authorities did.
Yeah.
So, and then think, what do we put as a content in that building? So let's take EU funds, we'll refurbish this beautiful building, and then we'll look who can operate there. No, what they did, they said, what is missing? What is the sector that at this point in time in Croatia is not developing as fast as it could? And they came to a conclusion that, and when I say video gaming, it's also app development, so it's not just purely games. So it's looking at this sector. And they bought their most sophisticated high-end equipment. They have furnished this building, which became a very small part of the project, with the content that attracted young people who needed this equipment in order to develop the games, but that was not it. They have worked with their local unemployment agency in order to use the funds for their unemployment benefits in order to fund their 1-year training for young people and those who wanted, not necessarily only young people, those who wanted to learn how to become developers, how to become animators, how to make a living out of this sector. So all of a sudden, people from all over Croatia started thinking, okay, this is where I can go and study. Then those who have graduated were given an opportunity by the local authorities to stay there and create small startups. And so the ecosystem started evolving. And it's a little bit... Cluj, for example, was on the forefront of this, and Cluj was an obvious choice. That little town was definitely not an obvious choice. They didn't have a university. They didn't have anything there that fundamentally could say that it could change their fortunes. But then what they did, they also started saying, okay, children in kindergarten, from kindergarten upwards, need to study English. They started to have summer camps while bringing the kids from all over the country in order to train them in programming, animation, as well as having fun during the summer camp. They have teamed up with a university that is like half an hour drive from the city in order to introduce the course. And last time I spoke to them, which was now like more than 18 months ago, they were thinking about creating a university. So the city's fortune has completely been reversed. There were no empty houses. Actually, accommodation became very scarce because not only it's a center of their education, they attract now talents from all over the country, and they became a really very strong player, whereby no unicorns yet have been born, but at the same time, the fortunes of this city have changed. Now, how long it took them? It took them between 5 to 7 years in order to turn around the fortune of the town that was losing people on a daily basis. So I think, again, the limitations are all in people's minds. If you are open to innovation, if you're open to support that exists, lots of funds is available to the just transition areas. And the reason why we have teamed up with GeoValley is that I was personally extremely impressed by their story. I have learned about the story coincidentally, let's put it like this. I went there, I met with these people, we brought the team from our offices. We have an office in Cluj as well. And clearly at this point in time, we are very keen to support these communities. Effectively, these are young communities that are trying to rebuild and redevelop something that has changed and evolved over time due to the realities, the economic realities that we have.
So, yeah, this is incredible. If you have good content, cooperation, funds, and education.
And the will.
And the will.
If you don't have the will...
Yeah, you have nothing.
Where there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
If you do not want or you resist the change, you are not open to innovation, no matter how many partners, no matter how much financing will be available, it will be very difficult to transform.
So we have energy, we have municipalities, we have projects like this, but I know that EBRD is a fan of ESG projects. Can you tell us just a few words about your involvement in this category?
Well, when we speak about ESG, I think we also need, and we spoke about energy, municipal sector, but we have not really spoken about private sector at this point in time, which is really the bulk of what we do. And when we speak about ESG, we need to understand that EBRD fundamentally has three main products. The first one and the largest project that we have, because we are a bank, we offer financing. But with the financing, we offer advisory that goes either hand in hand with the banking project that we financed or standalone when we support SMEs. And then we have the policy work, the policy dialogue work, where we work with the governments, national government, local governments. And within those areas, when we speak about ESG, they effectively contribute one way or another to each of these projects. Because speaking about their projects that we have just discussed, for example, of course, the inclusion part of the ESG is very much relevant. Speaking about the green, EBRD has committed to invest more than 65% of all of its investments in the projects that have green components. And here in Romania, we're exceeding this. We are, at this point in time, we're between 70 to 80%, which means that every project that comes to EBRD, and renewable energy by default, they're 100% green. But every project in any sector that we are financing needs to have an element which would make us think that the impact that we're making from ESG perspective is real. One of the practical examples, because otherwise when we stay very generic, it's very difficult probably to kind of say, okay, what concretely it means. One of our long-standing clients is Autonom.
Yeah.
And we have been supporting Autonom as an advisory client at the time when they were much smaller. But at the same time, Autonom is the first corporate company, corporate in Romania that has issued SLB bonds, sustainability-linked bonds. And we as EBRD, for us, this is the music to our ears. Of course, we have invested in each of their bonds, including the one as of last week. So this is how we do it. We're looking for their pioneers. We're looking at the companies that are willing to incorporate various dimensions, whether we speak about diversity, whether we speak about green, whether we speak about inclusion, into our business.
We talked a lot about what you have done this year, the last 5 years, since you have been in Romania. And since we only have 3 or 4 minutes more to go, I would like to know what are your plans for Romania in the years to come? Where do you see the opportunities? Where do you see the challenges, let's say, for your involvement here?
We have very ambitious plans. At this point in time, we would love Romania to be one of the top 5 countries of EBRD's operations. We do not know yet whether we will end up as number 6 or number 7 this year. I would love it to be number 5, but probably this is a little bit over-optimistic. So definitely in the years to come, we have the ambition for Romania to be one of the key markets for EBRD, and we operate in more than 30 countries. This will translate in substantial amounts of funds to be invested, between 700 million euros to ideally at least €1 billion invested in the Romanian economy every year. We will definitely continue supporting public sector and the reforms agenda. The reforms agenda is extremely important to us. I see that the work with the Ministry of Energy will continue, and for us this is a key stakeholder, and I'm very grateful to the Minister who is actually supporting this collaboration in terms of very practical measures that have been recently approved, as we talked about CFDs, but more to come, because Romania definitely has a role to play in the EU as first energy independent country, but also one of the potentially major exporters of energy, which is extremely, extremely important, and we want to play a role there. In terms of other areas of our involvement, We will continue supporting ESG topics, as you have mentioned. We are now working with Bucharest Stock Exchange on the improvement of their corporate governance code. We have launched in the last 18 months a very interesting program, Women on Boards, that has really took traction here in Romania, and we expect this to continue being very much important for our business in the country, but also as a contribution to their businesses here. We are launching next year a very interesting program called Star Ventures, which will be focused on their startups, where we will be supporting existing incubators and accelerators. So this type of work will continue to be very dear to our heart. And of course, we will continue supporting private sector with advice and as a bank, we will continue supporting it with the banking products as well as advisory. We haven't spoken about financial institution sector. This is an extremely important sector for us, and we're looking to bring a number of new products to the market, whereby we will continue collaboration with our existing clients in the banking sector to make sure that there is a meaningful impact on the Romanian economy.
And on the, challenges might seem, a tough word, especially in these days. But where do you see, the things that might affect you? What can we do so that we really embrace the whole opportunity that the BRD is bringing to the local economy?
I think that from the private sector side, I do not see at this point in time any challenges per se that will affect it. Speaking about the wider impact that we could have, I think it's about the will. And if there is a will, there will be a way. And I think for us it's extremely important to observe how their situation evolves in Romania, in order to make sure that we are supporting the reforms that Romania still definitely needs to implement in a number of areas, but also that we provide our real and tangible support to those who want to introduce those reforms and who want to bring meaningful improvements when we speak about the Romanian economic development.
So a strong will get us there.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you, Victoria, for this interview and everything you shared with us about what the BRD has done in Romania and will do in the years to come. Thank you very much. Noi vom lua acum o scurtă pauză. Ne revedem imediat după aceasta cu Adrian Borotea, Verbund și multă energie.
Gabriela Nistor, CEO al Salt Bank, povestește care sunt diferențele dintre o bancă tradițională și una digitală, care este strategia de atragere a clienților și cum schimbă instituția felul de a face banking în România. Românii sunt tot mai dispuși să petreacă timp în mall-uri, transformând aceste destinații în puncte centrale ale vieții urbane. Nepi Rockcastle, cel mai mare dezvoltator de centre comerciale din România, se adaptează acestui trend, investind constant în proiecte inovatoare și experiențe atrăgătoare pentru consumatori. Într-o perioadă în care toți suntem preocupați de găsirea unui echilibru între muncă și viața personală, tinerii manageri de top din România își conturează propriile strategii pentru a face față provocărilor zilnice. Am vrut să aflăm cum reușesc să gestioneze eficient timpul și să-și organizeze sarcinile, așa că i-am întrebat cum arată ziua sau săptămâna de lucru ideală pentru ei și cum își gestionează prioritățile într-o zi aglomerată. Răspunsurile lor ne arată că, dincolo de planificarea riguroasă, există și o constantă adaptare pentru a menține acel echilibru mult visat. Generația Z redefinește dinamica muncii, punând accent pe echilibrul între viața personală și profesională și abordând cu totul altfel conceptele tradiționale legate de carieră. Cu atitudine comună, orientată spre sănătatea mentală și stabilirea limitelor, tinerii din această generație aduc o perspectivă unică, dar mai ales provocatoare pentru manageri, care sunt adesea surprinși de așteptările și valorile lor neconvenționale. Citiți despre toate aceste subiecte, dar și despre multe altele, în cel mai nou număr al Business Magazine.